and the cocoa is almost 70%. Africa, now and future. If you look at the current statistic, out of 10, the fast developing economies, the 7 is seven is from Africa. Africa, as of now, the Africa and the future. Just a few comparison what Africa is now and what is going to be looks like in the coming days. I would like to say that the numbers are irrelevant. Maybe there could be an error, but just try to demonstrate what the future that Africa has it. The GDP as of now in 2010, it was 1.6 trillion, and they are expecting to grow about 2.6 trillion by 2020. The consumer spending is about 860 billion in 2008, and it's likely to grow about 1.4 billion by 2020. The household is 85 million. With the discretionary income, it is likely to grow about 128 million. The urbanization rate in Africa as of now is 40%, but likely to grow up to 50% in 2030. The current working population is about 583 million, is likely to cross 1.1 billion by 2040. The youngest working population as of now is 39%. It is going to exceed India and China by 2035. The revenue from agriculture sectors is about 280 billions and is likely to cross the 500 billions in 2013. The inflation rate, which is a key factor that Africa has, was about 22% in the 1990, and currently it has reached to about 8%. This is an important thing for you to understand that Africa, where it stands compared to the India and the developed nation. I think why this particular thing is very important is for you to understand I think I will explain you in the coming slides why this comparison has an important. The weather forecast in Africa, because there are many countries we do not have any effective weather forecast mechanism. As compared to in Asia, we have some extent that we could predict the weather, and I think Europe and Asia, USA, I think they are well monitored. The fertilizer application or the use is about 25 kg per hectare, as opposed to the Asia is about 170, and Europe is around 165 kg per hectares. The land holdings Africa is mainly small holders. I think the size of the land is below 1 acre, while in Asia is about 2.3 hectares per average, or while in Europe and USA is a commercial farming. Commercial farming is more effective, as we all know, as compared to these smallholders. The seeds, grades, and varieties, obviously in Africa we use the carry forward or the local or national varieties. As in Asia, we have naturals and new varieties, while Europe and the USA we use the hybrid. Irrigation. Certainly, I think the 99% of the Africa, the farming we depends on a rain-fed, as opposed to Asia is the canal, rain, or Europe is 100% irrigated. Farm equipments, I think that is also another important point which I'll show you some of the pictures that how the farming is being done in Africa. The Africa farming is mainly on the handhelds, the shackles and other stuff, while in Asia is the tractors, and obviously the Europe and in USA is a purpose-built equipments that they use. Harvesting, once again, is 100% manual, while in Asia is semi-mechanized, the harvesters, or maybe the combined in USA. In electricity, my apology, I can't say the no, but I think it's a merely in Africa. The Asia, I think that we have a few hours, or off late we see there's quite a lot of improvement, but still I think we have an issue with the electricities, while in Europe it's 24/7. The storage in Africa is definitely that farmers, they store it at their home, they don't have facilities, while in Asia they do have a warehousing, and Europe and USA is about the big silos. The processing is the small hulling, the splitting, and the splitting. Logistics, obviously in Africa, it's a jugaad, while in Asia that we have the good infrastructures, the tractors and trucks, and obviously the Europe, which I think is, unfortunately, is not working out in Canada, the rail cart, but they have quite a sophisticated logistics in place. These are some of the pictures. I'd like to show that I'm not trying to demonstrate the poverty in Africa, but I think the important here is to see the many times the people talk about the bumper crop in Africa. When people talk about the figures, whatever the figure, 300,000, 400,000, 500,000, and double the thing. By these pictures, I'd like to say that the farming in Africa is 100% manually done by the smallholders. Smallholders, regardless of the land, we do not have an issue with the land in Africa, but considering that it's manual the thing, there cannot be a huge growth in Africa unless it is modernized. So by these pictures, you can see even the equipment they use is fairly basic. These are the farmers working versus the other part of the world. Now coming back to the main subject of the pulses. Pulses, basically, it's grown in 6 countries, my apology. It's Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Mozambique, Malawi, and Ethiopia. Ethiopia mainly produces the lentils and the yellow gram. I have not taken the figure of the lentils here, just for the academic interest. The production of lentils in Ethiopia is about 100,000, but is entirely meant for the domestic consumption. The yellow gram, once again, it's allowed to export, but the greater part of that is consumed locally. So the balanced 5 countries, which is Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, Malawi, and Mozambique, the African pulses, I think, rather than say the African pigeon peas, because the Africa as such, we do play a major role when it comes to pigeon peas, but when it comes to the green mung and the yellow gram, I think we do not play a significant role to pulses industries. These are the figures where I could see that this is once again, you cannot compare with this year production. This year we had a huge shortage, and the production was almost 40% to the figures what has been seen here. These are the 5 years figures what I've taken, what has been exported out of Africa. The Tanzania, when we produce around 38,000 tons of yellow gram, 20,000 tons of green gram, 80,000 tons of pigeon peas in a good years. Kenya, they do not produce yellow gram. They produce around 18 to 20,000 tons of green mung, 30,000 tons of pigeon peas, but of late the Kenyan pigeon peas production has gone down. Uganda, they do produce about 10,000 tons of green mung and 10,000 tons pigeon peas, which generally comes as a border trade and get exported out of Kenya. Mozambique, the green mung crop is fairly small, it's about again 15,000 tons, but they do produce the substantial quantity of pigeon peas, which is in a good year is about 60,000 tons. Ethiopia, it's about Malawi, they produce about 1,000 tons of the yellow gram. In the past, they were producing much bigger than that, but because of the less demand, the crop is almost dying or disappearing there. While the green mung, again, is a similar situation in Malawi, but pigeon peas, as it comes to, they produce around 80,000 tons. These are the ones, again, I would like to highlight and emphasize. These are the figures I've taken based on an average export out of Africa, not what is being produced in Africa. Just for the interest of the industries, that in this year, the Africa, although the figures of 260,000 tons of pulses, as of now, as we speak, the import of African tour specifically is about 43,233. I mean, just to tell you, re-emphasize that the production in Africa in this year, because of the bad weather, we are almost 40% crop. What we can do for the Africa, I'm just trying to use this platform to highlight the challenges what we have in Africa. And maybe my request to the chairman, see if he could take it forward on this one. The government policies on import duty for the pulses in India. Certainly, it is a concern that most of the people, we always in a dilemma whether the Indian government is going to impose any duty or not. And that's why the trade is always getting puzzled And I think that's where that we have a big challenge as going forward. The fumigation compliance is by the Indian government on methyl bromide. As we all know that methyl bromide, either you can say it's almost banned, or the people are not encouraging due to the environmental concern. But in India, we've been asked to fumigate all the cargoes by methyl bromide. In Africa, mainly the countries which we are exporting to India, like Malawi, Tanzania, Mozambique, the methyl bromide is a banned thing. And we cannot produce any phytosanitary certificate, although some they do manage, I do not know how, but generally we end up paying the penalties for the not complying the requirement. I would request this, the conference, if you could help us on that one. The perception of protecting the farmers from the cheap import. This is another key things, the perception of the thing. The reason I've taken some numbers for you to understand that do we really need to protect our Indian farmers or any farmers from the African farmers. Just to give you some quick example, that Malawi tuodar, I think earlier for this year, for the beginning, it was sold about $500 CNF values. If you minus $150 for the logistics from the Malawi to here, and obviously the $70 for the domestic transport and the handling cost, I think the farmers gets the realization of $270, $280 per metric ton, with the average yield of about 200 kgs per acre. And versus the Indian farmers are getting realization of 40 rupees per kg, which is 640, is almost 3 times than the value what the African farmers is realizing. So I'm just my question to this thing, that do we really need to protect our farmers versus these African farmers? The realistic and accurate market information. This is another important problem that the people, we do not have like sophisticated data like what we could produce or what we get out of USA, Australia, or the America. In Africa, because of this lack of insufficient data and the information, rumors are playing the major role. If we could try and improve that something here. And what can we expect? Yes, certainly it's a beginning for the Africa, but in coming days we believe that Africa would be the breadbasket for the world, and it has a huge potential, will essentially benefit to all of us. And the last slide is, although not so very important to the United States, but we operate about 25 countries and could be your partner. Thank you for that, gentlemen.
Thank you, Jayesh Bhai. Jayesh Bhai raised some of the concern about, one is methyl bromide, use of methyl bromide by the requirement by the Indian government. I'm sure IPGA can be a good platform to take up this matter. I'm sure they were going to help us in this way. But the another issue, which is upliftment of farmer, that is certainly in the hands of ETG. They say farmers is getting very less price. They should give them higher price, and that will prove into the implementation of the farmers. What do you say, Jayesh Bhai? Yeah. All right.
I think it's not in hand of any individuals. I think it's in hand of the industries. All I was trying to make a point that Indian government, and obviously that we should exclude Africa, perhaps. I have seen the Japan, China, they always encourage the import out of Africa, mainly by the sesame. I have seen that they have a SPT, they call it the Special Preferential Trade Agreement between the Africa and China, in Japan and USA. And I think I would request the Indian government, if you can convince them to exclude from so-called import duty or some sort of protections for those import. I think that will at least help us in the coming days.
Thank you. That ends the presentations on Myanmar and Africa. Couple of questions I may like to take, just one or two, because more discussions will be carried out in next session, which is panel discussions. So if anybody has got questions, just raise your hand, tell your name and the company name and the question, please, and to whom it is addressed. Mike there, please. Yeah.
Bimal Kothari.
Yeah.
It's not a question, but it's rather what you have just referred about the methyl bromide. I think as an association, this is a major issue which we are also facing, and we have taken up the matter with the plant quarantine department. to address this issue, which has been going on for quite some time. And we hope that we will resolve this issue shortly, because a number of discussions are going on this issue. So, because we also are facing the same problem, because we have to face the penalty, we have to pay the penalty for, as we are paying 50 rupees a ton for the import of these pulses. But because of this methyl bromide situation, we have to pay 5 times penalty. So, as an importer also, we are having this problem. So, as an association, we are taking up this issue. Number 2, regarding, as you were talking about the farmers, the advantage of the farmers and disadvantage of the Africa, what I noticed in your presentation, that African farmers are also getting the very good price of their crop. Only problem is the logistics problem, because what I've seen that there are about $250 is added to the cost. So that's why, they are not getting their due price. I think those issues should be addressed more than the, competing between the farmers of India and the farmers of Africa. Thank you.
Kothari ji, it was not to criticize any individuals or maybe any government as such. The idea what I was trying to, yes, we do have a challenges in Africa, and certainly we are looking for, the current crop size is such a small that we cannot improve on logistics. We cannot load the break bulk vessels and ship the cargo. We are yet to reach to that stage. So I was trying to say, as of now, that the so-called protections that what we have it, either we could request the Indian government to exclude these African pulses from the, possibly that the Indian government may impose the duty on this thing. So if in coming days, if you can at least make a presentation to exclude. With regard